Welcome to Reverse Reset Restore, the show that is all about the healing power of the mind, body, and soul. I'm Sally, your host and partner on this voyage of personal development. In our episodes, we generally navigate the intricate landscape of internal change, exploring the power within to bring about lasting transformation. In today's episode, we're looking at an external factor that could be causing you harm, and it might surprise you. Come along with me to find out more. Change comes from within. Now you may be wondering why I started this episode with noise. That is the sound of my singing bowl. Well, today, my dear ones, we are talking about sound, and more specifically, noise pollution and its impact on our well-being. I wanted us to hone in for a moment on a different sound than maybe you're used to hearing as we start this conversation. Usually, when I talk about noise, I'm often referring to the incessant internal chatter of the overthinking mind. I don't know about you, but mine sure gets cluttered in there with all that thinking and self-flagellation. I have had to work really hard to stop my cognitive distorted thinking patterns and the self-berating that comes along with feelings of not being enough or trying to be perfect. Hold your head up high if you get exactly what I am talking about. You can't see me, but both of my arms are outstretched into the sky. Well, today, we're not focusing on that mindless chatter of the noisy mind. We're actually going to take a look at the way that noise can harm us physically and emotionally, because noise doesn't just potentially damage our ears. The impacts can be felt in places in our bodies I bet you've never even thought about, because I know I sure didn't. The World Health Organization has estimated that 1.6 million years of healthy living are lost every year in Europe alone because of noise pollution. So what started this topic today? Well, noise and sound therapies and all these sort of things have been something that I've been wanting to talk about for a while now. But it was during the 10 days I recently spent over the Christmas period in Bali that it kind of made me pay attention again. It was an amazing experience. I learned so much about the culture and the spiritual practices and, of course, the beautiful Balinese people. I also discovered, like most popular tourist destinations, it was challenging to escape the soundscape of the bustling towns. The noise pollution was actually overwhelming at times, which you'd expect, obviously, in crowded places and walking along tight streets that you share with cars and motorbikes and trucks and locals and tourists. It was in the rare absences of noise that you would become acutely aware of just how loud everything around you was. In the absence of noise, it's amplified. Unless you are deaf or you have hearing loss, sound is one of those senses that is all-enveloping, inescapable, and it could be a contributing factor in our health issues. Now, I've been using sound as a form of healing for some time now, like my singing bowl when I'm meditating or praying or wanting to hone in on a part of my body that I feel needs some healing or some extra love and support. But it was only recently that I have discovered the vast amount of research that is showing that excessive or prolonged exposure to noise can have various negative effects on health. Yes, what we hear could be making us sick. Add it to the list, right? My Apple Watch is very pedantic about letting me know when the decibel levels are encroaching dangerous levels. But it's almost always when I'm in the shower or swimming. It clearly doesn't care for the sound of water. And when I walk down the street on a windy day, it also lets me know that the noise levels are too high. But these are not sounds I worry about because these exposures are natural. But the noise that I can't ignore is giving me some pause. So, for example, we live right next to train tracks. Now, when my house is shut up, we seldom hear anything.
Thank you. Amazing installation. But apparently, low-level noise, or the fact my body knows even when I'm asleep that trains are passing by, could be having a detrimental impact on my health. As a person with a poor sleep history and a body constructed of about, 90% cortisol at this rate, this reality is alarming. So feel free to join me in being just as deeply disturbed with some of the reasons why noise is considered dangerous for our health. I'm going to list 12 physical, emotional, and societal impacts constant noise can have in our lives. Now, the obvious one. Number 1, hearing damage. Prolonged exposure to loud noise, especially true for sounds above a certain decibel level, whether from occupational sources, recreational activities, or environmental factors,
can lead to mechanical damage, which damages the hair cells in the inner ear.
This damage is often irreversible and can result in partial or complete hearing loss. Number 2, stress and anxiety. Constant exposure to noise, especially at high volumes, can trigger the body's stress response. This can lead to the activation of stress hormones. So exposure to these noise triggers releases stress hormones such as cortisol and adrenaline. Elevated levels of these hormones over time can contribute to chronic stress,
which is associated with various health problems and contributes to feelings of anxiety and tension.
It can also result in impaired immune function. So chronic stress resulting from noise exposure can suppress the immune system, making individuals more susceptible to infections and illness. Number 3, sleep disturbances. Sleep onset disruption. Noise, particularly during the night, can interfere with the ability to fall asleep, to stay asleep, and to experience restorative sleep, leading to sleep disturbances and fatigue.
Sudden loud noises can lead to awakenings, disrupting the natural sleep cycle.
It can also impact on sleep quality. Even low-level background noise can reduce the overall quality of sleep. Interrupted or poor quality sleep is associated with a range of health issues, including fatigue, impaired cognitive function, and compromised immune function.
Number 4, cardiovascular effects, increased blood pressure.
So chronic exposure to noise, especially at high volumes, has been linked to elevated blood pressure, elevated heart rate, and an increased risk of heart-related conditions. The stress response triggered by noise can contribute to these cardiovascular effects and can contribute to the development of cardiovascular conditions such as hypertension, increasing the risk of heart attacks and strokes. Noise triggers the body's stress response, as we've mentioned, and that can lead to an increase in your heart rate. This heightened cardiovascular activity over time can strain the heart and cardiovascular system. Number 5, impaired cognitive function. Noise pollution has been associated with cognitive impairments, including difficulties concentrating, learning, and remembering. It can also affect task performance and overall cognitive function, especially in environments where concentration is crucial. Now, just to share a little story with you, I know when I'm working in an office and it's extremely loud, I have in the past found it very hard to concentrate. I have learnt techniques to stop paying attention and kind of let all of that noise around me go, the ambient sounds. But there have been times in my life when I have really struggled to concentrate because the noise has just been so intense.
Studies also suggest that exposure to chronic noise can hinder learning and memory. Children exposed to noise in school environments or in their homes may experience difficulties in academic performance. Number 6, mental health impact. Long-term exposure to noise has been linked to mental health issues such as depression and anxiety. The constant stress induced by noise pollution can contribute to the development or exacerbation of mental health conditions. Number 7, musculoskeletal impact, tension and muscle contraction. Prolonged exposure to noise, especially in stressful environments, can lead to increased muscle tension and contraction. This can contribute to musculoskeletal conditions or issues such as tension headaches and neck or back pain. Number 8, interference with communication. High levels of ambient noise can interfere with effective communication, leading to misunderstandings and frustration. This can impact relationships and social interactions, contributing to feelings of isolation. Now, if you happen to be the type of person that is a little bit of a homebody, or maybe an introvert, and being outside around a lot of people is not really your thing, and then you end up having to hang out with a bunch of people at a bar or somewhere where it's loud, that can add to a feeling of being isolated from other people because you simply can't hear or have a proper conversation. Number 9, impaired quality of life. Persistent exposure to noise can reduce your overall quality of life. It can affect individuals' well-being, mood, and overall satisfaction with their living or working environment. Number 10, cardiometabolic risk, insulin resistance. So long-term exposure to noise has been linked to an increased risk of metabolic issues, including insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is a precursor to conditions like type 2 diabetes. Weight gain. Some research suggests a correlation between noise exposure and weight gain. Chronic stress from noise may contribute to unhealthy eating habits and weight-related issues. Number 11, negative impact on children. Children are particularly vulnerable to the negative effects of noise. Exposure to noise during critical periods of development can interfere with their learning, their language acquisition, and academic performance. So if you're a mum or a dad or a caregiver for a child that maybe they've got some ongoing health issues, or perhaps there's some behavioural issues that you're a little bit concerned about, it might be worthwhile investigating if noise pollution or certain sounds or ambient noises may be playing a part in what's going on with them. And number 12, aggravation of existing health conditions. Noise pollution can worsen existing health conditions, including those related to the cardiovascular and respiratory systems. It can also exacerbate symptoms in individuals with conditions such as migraines or tinnitus. Any of these ringing any bells? Pun intended. If you or the people in your life have any of the conditions mentioned, it might be worth investigating what type of noise pollution you might be living or working in, or have lived or worked in, and how you can make some changes. Of course, it's important to note that individual susceptibility to the health effects of noise can vary, and factors such as age, overall health, and genetic predispositions play a role. So what might be harmful to me in contributing to certain health conditions might be alright for you, and vice versa. Now, you might be thinking, okay, Sally, but how do I fix this when I live in a city, or I live in a place that has lots of noise like traffic or an airport or downtown? Well, for us city livers, noise is part and parcel of living where we do. Where possible, we can advocate for policies and practices that reduce overall noise pollution in both urban and industrial settings. Now, unless we get some type of apocalypse or another pandemic that keeps most of us indoors again, no thank you, universe. There are definitely limitations as to what we can do if we live in a city, but it's not impossible. So efforts to reduce noise pollution and implement protective measures, such as using ear protection or noise-cancelling earphones or soundproofing, are crucial for maintaining physical health in noisy environments. I use white noise, generally rain and ocean sounds, for when I sleep, as it blocks out everything else. Of course, after learning about noise contributing to ill health, I'm making sure that this noise is under 50 decibels and not all night long, as suggested by current research. My white noise at night works really well. Like I mentioned earlier, I live right by a train line, so a constant flow of trains rolling through every 7 minutes or so is pretty standard for us. But we also live on a quiet dead-end street and right by a river with trees and fields to look over. So our noise is mostly just train related. And if you live in the middle of nowhere, like some of my family members, let me know how you feel in the serenity of silence. so I can be a little bit jealous. You could also try implementing a regular routine of a sensory deprivation, something like a float. I'm going to cover floats in another episode. You could also try just hanging out in an orchestral chamber, or if you're really keen, check out the anechoic chamber at Orfield Laboratories in Minneapolis, which up until 2015 was the quietest place in the world, with a background noise reading of negative 9.4 decibels. Although it does come with a real warning that the silence could drive you mad. Thanks for joining me today as we explore the correlation between sound and our physical elements. I'd love to hear your thoughts, and if you've ever considered if noise pollution, whether it's from work or home or all the places in between, may have influenced any physical illnesses that you've experienced. I've been thinking a lot about this since doing this research because I have type 2 diabetes and I lived in places like Manhattan and other cities, and both of my brothers don't have type 2 diabetes and they live in a pretty, quiet, one of them very quiet rural area. I don't know if there's a correlation there. There's a lot of factors. It's not just one, oh yes, I've heard this noise and now I'm diabetic. There'll be a lot of factors to all of the reasonings why I have weight gain and I have diabetes and I have mental health issues that I've had in the past. But it is very interesting to sort of sit back and reflect and go, oh, actually, I wonder if there has been some correlation between noise pollution that I've experienced in my life living in places like Hong Kong and New York and Sydney and Auckland, and whether or not that has actually made a contribution to my health. Just something worth thinking about, I think. If you've been using sound as a form of healing, whether it be the singing bowls or humming or singing or listening to audio that has specific healing quantities in it or just music in general, let me know in the comments or by reaching out directly via our YouTube channel or on Insta or Facebook pages. You can find us by searching for Reverse Reset Restore or clicking on the links in the show notes. Now I'm about to go and see if someone somewhere has created a noise cancelling outfit or something that we can don over our entire body like a weird cocoon. It probably hasn't been invented, there's probably no need to invent it, but maybe I could invent it. Who knows? As always, we finish out the episode with a quote. This is from an unknown source, but it's one I think is worth listening to. Again, pun intended. Noise pollution is the most prevalent form of pollution across the globe, and it's affecting millions of people and wildlife.